Hello, I'm Nicole Glenn, co-host of the LLC podcast, and it's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both personal and professional challenges our guest overcame, how their backgrounds help shape who they are today, and how they empower others, give back to their communities, and often the world. Joining me today is Ashley Campbell, Global Supplier Diversity and Sustainability Manager at TE Connectivity, a global industrial technology manufacturing leader creating a safer, sustainable, productive, and connected future. Ashley is running a global diversity program while kicking off sustainability initiatives across 13 different business units. Let's hear how she does it. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. I love the fact that you're here with us.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm glad to be here. And when I hear you say it like that, it's like, no wonder I'm so tired.
I understand it. I understand that for sure. So I'm just going to jump right in and let's hop into our first question, which is that you've had such an interesting background growing up in a farm in North Central Florida, and being self-proclaimed tomboy that we uncovered in our first chat. Please share with our listeners, a little bit about your background, your, youth, your education, and maybe some influencers that have played a big part in your life.
Yeah, so I did. I grew up on a farm in North Central Florida, which is just outside of Gainesville. So very, very rural. I spent my summer afternoons, riding my horse bareback, running around the farm barefoot, just in love with nature, swimming in the lakes, the ponds, the springs. And that really grounded me growing up. And it did create this absolute love for all things green and nature in general. That really just became my happy place. That was interesting to transition as I was maturing, growing up, and I was a tomboy. I was into things a lot of other girls weren't into. Like one of my role models growing up, I don't know if you know who she is, but it was Shirley Muldowney, who was the first woman to break through in top fuel drag racing, right? She was my hero for years because she was able to dominate a sport that had been a man's world. And I got to meet her and shake her hand. And it was just like life-changing to meet my idol at 12, right?
That's awesome.
It was cool. It was super cool. And she did tell me, at that point, there's no difference between you and him. Just stick with whatever you decide to do. And that was huge for me. And it stuck. That did stick. So all of my loves and passions, being outside, being outdoors, and just kind of not growing up in the norm of a typical, little girl, I think has put me in this unique place here to oversee a program that's going to be pivotal to changing TE connectivity. Yeah.
I can relate to some of that too, in regards to being in nature. It just changes you. We owned a house, or bought a house, I guess you could say, that was tucked away on just a ton of land. And it, even as an adult, going from living in a suburb home to that, even to this day, I no longer live there. I now live in, a little box area, Texas, where your backyard, is tiny, but something changes when you have that connection. So I can totally relate to that feeling.
It's seeing those intricacies, of how the nature interacts and how one little thing that you do can manipulate an entire ecosystem. It's an interesting thing to experience.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So you went from being an accounting compliance area of a small wellness company to a major diversity sustainability role for a multinational electronics manufacturer. So different, these two roles, right? Tell us more about that. And how did you go from one spot to the other with your path?
So you make it sound like it happened yesterday, but it's been a long journey. It's been a few years to get here. And, it's interesting is the skill sets that you learn in a smaller organization where you have to be, adaptable, flexible, agile. think outside the box because you don't have as many resources. You maybe don't have this huge team behind you and a slew of analysts that you can approach when you have questions. I think all of the skills that you garner in that kind of a smaller environment for me became a nice platform, a nice foundation for moving forward, because no matter how many people I have around me or how many people I have to answer to, I always think about the situation from that small resourceful place. Like, what can I do? How can I get these answers? And that impacts pretty much every decision I make and the relationships that I build to this day within these larger, with this large organization.
Well, you and I have talked about communication and really how important that is in your role on when you're trying to connect all these people, right? Do you think a smaller company creates a different type of environment for communication that you're able to bring over to a larger one?
Absolutely. I think when you're in a smaller organization, you really have to hone your diplomacy skills.
Yeah.
Because you can't hide in anonymity of having, thousands of coworkers with you, right? So I think that I really did hone in on my ability to learn all the different types of communication styles and be diplomatic no matter what the situation is, to try and get my point across and get my needs met professionally, so it has me uniquely poised at this point to be able to discuss any facet of the business with anybody in the company, from C-suite down to a floor worker, and let them know that they're heard, they're understood, and for me to take away from that conversation something useful.
For sure.
Yeah.
And with still touching this, because I know for myself, we've talked before about how our family empowers reasons why we make substantial changes in our life. Could you hone in a little bit about some of your whys personally that make you go against the grain, I guess, and take chances and change?
Yeah. So I have a really interesting backstory. I was a massage therapist for 26 years. And as my two boys started getting older and I was a divorced single mom, I realized that I needed to have a career that was more stable, more consistent. I had to show up for it every day. And my why was being the sole, primary provider for my boys and wanting to be a role model for them, that you got to show up, you got to do the work, take chances, grow your career, work from a place of excellence every day. And my journey to where I am now is proof to them that getting up every morning, showing up, being there, and being diligent really can open doors for you that you never expected.
Yeah, I was going to say that, your boys have seen that and witnessed that. I'm sure that's impacted them, and having that, I don't want to say mom that can do it all, but just parent that is a role model on how to go after what it is that you want and taking a risk. It's not easy or comfortable to suddenly change. I mean, that's something you had done for a long time. So to suddenly change and go into something different, they don't understand that at the ages that they probably were. But when they look back and reflect, they see how tremendous of a leap that was for you and how uncomfortable, that could have been.
Oh yeah. Well, more recently, when I was making that transition from the accounting background more to the sustainability, renewable career path that I wanted to be on, that I was most passionate about, that was a huge switch for me to go from, cost accounting, forensic accounting, manufacturing environment to I'm going to now be focused on utility scale solar development and demand response portfolios, and I want to learn everything I can about this to open these doors to sustainability. And there were a few times they saw the frustration, they saw the tears, and me going, oh my god, I'm not going to learn all of this. And but they also saw me prevail, and here I am today.
Yeah.
So it was good for them to see that, good for me to experience it.
Well, we're going to dive more into you telling us more about your successful diversity program, and more importantly, what does it take to keep it alive in an organization as large as TE?
Well, I have to tell you that, the first thing you have to do in an organization design is identify the structures that are going to be beneficial for growing this type of program. And you have to have support from the top down. And fortunately, I've got great support, and our global procurement team is on board. So selecting the people within the organization to really be my allies and attend events with me, help vet these suppliers, and find the place where we can point them within the organization. That's key. You're not going to have a successful diversity program unless you get allies in your organization that feel as passionately about it as you do. The biggest roadblock is change, and a lot of people in commodities and buyers, they don't like change because if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Mm-hmm. Why should we bring in this new supplier? It's working great with this one, right? So encouraging them to trust your judgment, take that leap of faith, and bring some new suppliers in. That's both the challenge, and getting the people in place to help you achieve that is the reward.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you? Like, think of that. You're running a diversity program in a huge company, making just waves. I mean, that is something that's very impactful to what's happening with initiatives really across the board.
Yeah.
Do you get a sense of fulfillment? Like, how do you feel with doing something like that?
It's fulfilling for sure. And it's like a lot of people work their whole lives and don't feel like they make a difference in the company they're at. They just come and they do their job, they leave. Every morning when I sit down at my desk, I know that the decisions and conversations I'm having today can have a major impact, not just within my organization, but externally facing suppliers, facing employees of those suppliers. There's a huge ripple effect. And I want to be the person that creates a system of support and recognition and success for these diverse suppliers, all around the company. And, for us to become teammates in the business world, and they can rely on TE connectivity. They can rely on me to really help them bring their best foot forward to gain that business and provide security for themselves and their employees. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge responsibility. And
yeah, it is.
I'm excited to be part of it. Yeah.
And I can see that being insanely rewarding, because usually these companies that you're working with may have overcame significant obstacles to even be operating, right? Let alone delivering a product or a manufactured product to sell to your firm. So I can only imagine what it feels like for them to feel that growth and that partnership. I think that's something that just in general companies really need to focus in on, is the diversity side of things, but also that true lifting an organization all the way through to help them bring success, so they in turn can bring you success, is just amazing. And I've seen in my experience of working with a lot of large companies that are seeking diverse suppliers, what goes into that. There's so much that goes into that. It isn't just like, oh, hey, here's a great company that does X, go. Like, it's really nurturing that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's interesting is, as I've been developing this program, there are more companies reaching out to me, but I would say 80% of it is outreach, trying to find these companies and, being members of these diversity organizations and going offsite doing these exhibits. It's helpful. You're encountering more people and more opportunities to engage with different suppliers, but that is the big push. Where do you look? What rocks do you turn over to find the supplier that provides that exact service that you need downstream in your industry, right?
Right.
And it's been great over the course of the last year to see this conversation topic evolving, not just within my organization, but like globally. Like, diversity is just really becoming such a hot topic. And so that's helping with this endeavor. It's helping to find these niche businesses to fill the spots, right?
No, I agree. And it's something that I hope, if we have diverse business owners listening in on, that they take a look at some of the resources out there to help them lift their companies to do this. And I always tell people too, and it doesn't necessarily mean that, you're going to go apply and become certified in business. It's just going to fall into your lap. It's also taking that as the person that's trying to connect and really lifting that to where the follow through is consistently there. And it's an advantage to just have great conversation, and try to establish a solid working rapport. But it's something I highly suggest to get involved in. And not only is it working directly with people who are, shipping, and I know I'm saying this, or, as a shipping company, but you're going to go to some of these events too and just meet so many dynamic individuals just as attendees, that everybody's coming together and everybody has that great mission cause to keep learning and growing together. So I'm a commercial. I love it. I just think I met so many wonderful people from being a part of just the WeBank organization. I know that there's many, many more out there. So we are now going to flip the conversation over though, and really understand sustainability. I feel like that you're in two buzzword roles, right? Sustainability. I think there's a lot of people that don't even truly understand what that means and what companies are trying to accomplish with it. So I know TE Connectivity's sustainability initiative is new. So can you first just tell us a little bit about it and what is sustainability?
Well, let's clarify a couple of points right off the top. We've actually had a really profound sustainability program for a few years. The piece that's new is the one I'm fronting, which is more of the global procurement piece, which is supplier facing, which is scope 3. Now, scope 3 is that big picture that you order a shirt, the emissions that the manufacturer makes while creating that shirt for you, and then the logistics emissions that are created by delivering that shirt to your door. That's scope 3. Okay. So I think the hardest part in this whole endeavor is defining sustainability and getting different people and different companies and suppliers to have an accurate definition of sustainability, because no two companies view it the same, right?
Sure.
So for me at TE, bringing this piece from the ground up, it's been a lot of supplier interaction and engagement, learning what our suppliers are doing, learning if they even have a program, and if they don't, why not? So it's a lot of education, outreach, alignment. So that communication question you had earlier.
Yep. You're a pro. You have to be.
It's like 90% of it,
Yeah.
And so taking the information that I'm gleaning from these conversations and these opportunities to engage with these suppliers, and then, filtering through and really looking at that and going, okay, well, what can we do with this knowledge? How can we utilize this to help TE Connectivity get on top of our scope 3 emissions and make a difference? And so now we're looking at internal strategies and, framework software, communicating it downstream to those 13 business units that you were talking about earlier, right? Like making sure we're all kind of moving in the right direction, which can sometimes feel like the Wild West or herding chickens, getting everybody on board. But being able to create this program, build it from the ground up, creating strategies that I am super excited about and proud of, and knowing that at the end of the day, bringing all of these suppliers into this conversation is going to create some change. It's going to help. And I can sleep better at night because I know that I'm doing something, anything,
right?
Even if it's just telling suppliers who don't have a program, look, dude, you got to get one, right? And applauding the suppliers that have a really robust program, like saying, yes, let's learn from each other. How can we roll this downhill and make sure everybody's engaged? So, I'm super, super passionate about this piece of the puzzle because it's huge, and not a lot of people have been able to really wrap their brain around how to tackle this scope 3 problem, because it is huge and it's global. And there's a really great visual I like to share when people are kind of struggling with, I don't get it, right? So picture a piece of chainmail, like chainmail. Individually, that little piece is it's not relevant, it's not strong, it's not going to make any difference, it's not going to protect you, right? But you start tying those little pieces of chainmail together, next thing you know, you've got this great grid. Well, each one of these suppliers in this world, not just, at TE, but all of the supply chain are interconnected. And if we all stand fast to make a change and a commitment to carbon emissions reduction, then we go from being one little itty bitty piece of chainmail to this whole web that can wrap around the globe and make a change, make an impact.
And it can be something small that, like you're saying, where it's just a percentage, and if everybody's contributing to make that, active choice to reduce that by a small percentage, that is just, it's a domino effect for the planet.
It exactly is. And, if you look at it in the terms of surrounding the globe, right now, all of the supplier emissions are out here. But if everybody can commit 5, 10, 20, 100% year over year, that little, ball around the planet is going to get smaller and tighter, and it's going to protect us. So I feel very firmly that I'm in a good place to continue that messaging.
Well, the first time we talked about it, we just had a casual conversation, and like the passion you were like putting out was from like really how you grew up. And, that was so impactful to you. And so, I mean, I loved the passionate message that you delivered with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, I want my grandchildren and my grandchildren's children to be able to experience the same sensation of walking barefoot in the cool evening sand, or, feeling the rain fall from a tree branch. I want to preserve this planet as much as we can. I'm so passionate about it, and to be in a position, a role where I get to be voice for the planet, and I get to support endeavors that can hopefully ultimately create some change, as well as making sure that all the diverse voices are heard. It really is profound. And I'm so grateful every day when I wake up to be in this chair doing what I do.
That's awesome. I'm smiling. That's good. I mean, I don't get to meet a lot of people that are on a daily just passionate about what they do. And so it's great when you actually come across somebody that feels so profoundly pulled to their why, that they just believe in it. And so I get all, geeked out, because that's how I feel and what I get to do every day, which is moving trucks around the US, right? It's actually working with people. So for me, I can relate to that. Happy buzz you get from doing some of that stuff. Yeah. But with this change, you're trying these new initiatives. I'm sure sometimes, like you had said before in the beginning, you're in tears. It's a little overwhelming. But, what has been your biggest learning curve with these new types of responsibilities and overcoming those challenges? A lot of our listeners and talks that we've talked to have talked about imposter syndrome and how to overcome that. And so I'd love to hear what your viewpoint is on going over a learning curve and tackling it.
Well, I'll share a little story. So my first month in this new role, I was on a call with a, household name. I'm not going to name who, but it's a big company. And I'm talking to the head of their sustainability division, who happens to have a doctorate, who happens to have been studying this for 20 something years, right? And here I am, my first month, and I'm like really digging into scope 3. And I'm like, all right, we're going to have this great conversation. And I remember getting off that call going, what am I doing? That whole imposter syndrome that you just mentioned, it was just like, okay, I don't have a doctorate in environmental sustainability. Who am I kidding? Right. But it took me a couple of days to step back and go, I was engaging with this person one-on-one, making sense with what he was saying, with what I was saying. We were coming together. We had a collaborative conversation, and therefore I know what I'm talking about and I can hold my own. And I think that moment was the realization that I just got to believe in myself and believe in my ability to understand and to communicate and my intellect and ask questions if I don't, and, give myself some grace and some, humanity that this is always, a learning experience. But at the end of the day, you just got to believe in yourself. You just got to understand that there's really nothing in your way that's going to keep you from being successful.
I agree with that. And it's being vulnerable. Like that was a big thing that you just said, which was having that grace for yourself and taking those steps to continually learn. And I mean, even for me, it's, I proclaim, I only know what I know, but I'm willing to learn beyond that. I'm always wanting to sharpen that skill set. So those learning curves and that imposter syndrome you're not really being an imposter when you say like, hey, I don't know that, but thank you. And can you tell me more? Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So, I mean, I can relate to that. I feel like I keep saying I can relate to what you're saying.
Well, I can relate that you can relate. So there you go.
Yeah, we're all relatable. So we're going to ask the question of like advice, what's some of the best advice that you've gotten and taken that's made a difference and changed you? Or I always love this part of it. Best advice that you got that you went, I am so glad I didn't listen to that. That would have been terrible for me.
I can answer both of those. The best piece of advice is one I just mentioned. You just got to believe in yourself, no matter what. Get up every morning and trust that you can do what you need to do. And if you have doubt, if you have fear, face it and shake it off. Right? That's best advice I can give. And the one piece of advice, it wasn't even really advice. It was advice that I got that I was just like, no, I don't believe it. Was about, 10 years ago when some headhunter person told me that I was a $30,000 a year employee, and I was only ever going to be a $30,000 a year employee. And I remember looking at that man going, you don't know what you just started.
Thank you for my fuel. I appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate that, concise breakdown of me when you have absolutely no idea what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
So if somebody tries to, undervalue you or belittle you, just shake it off and go inside and find what drives you and make it happen.
I'm with you there too.
Yep.
So here's my favorite question of the entire show, which is going to end it for us, but fill in the blank to this statement. If I could teach young women coming into this industry one thing, what would it be?
Just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. I kind of feel like a broken record, but that's it. That's the secret sauce at the end of the day. You just got to believe in yourself. And also, don't take no for an answer. Like, it can be there, but you can always find another solution, if you work hard at it and look outside the box. So believe in yourself and go around the bend and figure out how to make things work for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that closes our show, Ashley. I want to thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your personal and professional journey. And for people to get more information about you and TE Connectivity, where should they go?
You can email me directly at ashley.campbell@te.com. And that is CAMPBELL. So ashley.campbell@te.com. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Or if you'd like to learn more about our supplier diversity and sustainability program, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And we want to ask you to stay tuned for more inspiring stories with LLC. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thanks.